so much for having me. I feel very privileged to have been asked to speak here today. It's such a great conference, I couldn't be happier. Many thanks to the organisers and volunteers for putting this conference together. You've done an amazing job. I'm sure everyone watching, as well as all our speakers, really appreciate your hard work. My name is Natalia. I'm an environmentalist by night and technologist by day. I build mobile apps and websites for Plymouth-based agency called Elixir. We're a digital transformation agency that partners with their clients to co-design products and services that drive real organizational change. If I'm not working, I'm probably spoiling my dog Dobby, trying to outlift everyone in the gym, or as of fairly recently, climbing or bouldering. And if I don't do any form of fitness, I am likely to be eating cake because it's called balance. Normally, when I present at events, I get everyone to do a little warm up for the talk, 10 air squats just to get the oxygen flowing, get the blood pumping. But as this is all digital, I trust that you will all get up and do 10 air squats on your own. Okay, so is everyone ready? Go on. Yay, that 10 air squats done. Well done. Oh, so cheesy. Right, so why am I here today? For some time now, I've been trying to figure out what I can do to save this planet. Like probably many of you have, to be honest. We all realize now more than ever before how beautiful the world is and how much it needs our work, our help to continue to grow. About a year and a half ago, I had this epiphany that I surely am affecting environment through both the work that I do and the technologies that I use. At the time, I hadn't seen or heard of anyone talk about tech and climate. So, as you do, I went online and I asked Twitter for help. That's actually how I heard about OMG Climate event organized by Climate Action Tech community. OMG Climate is community-run unconference about technology and climate change. The format of an unconference is that attendees pitch their ideas, and they're being voted for, and number the ideas with the most votes are then being discussed in smaller groups. So it's a bit different than your regular conference to which you go to, all your schedule ahead of a time and you attend the talks that you know what you're getting. It was an incredible event. I learned so much. I left feeling all inspired and hyped, and I decided that I can't no longer sit around, but I felt somewhat obligated, to take all I've learned with me and share it with who'd like to listen. By all means, I'm not an expert. I'm here today to share with you what I've learned. So hopefully that'll inspire you to take your own steps to research this stuff and learn even more about it. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about climate change. I will show you some stats, I'll show you some examples of current state of climate change, how technology is affecting it. I'll also talk about principles of sustainable software engineering, the ways we can reduce carbon footprint as developers and in our day-to-day life as people. I'm going to run some tests. I'm going to show you examples of the work that's already happening in this space. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today are quite likely, common knowledge for most developers here. But I think it's very, very crucial to highlight it as important for sustainable software development. That's why I will be bringing it up. According to the UN, we only have 10 years left to prevent irreversible damage from climate change. What it means is if we don't act now, and by now I mean yesterday, and global temperatures rise by 1.5 degrees, it will result in more dangerous disruptions to global societies and ecosystems, including longer, hotter heat waves, more frequent crop-killing droughts, as well as the increase of sea and ocean temperatures, and those will, of course, impact and worsen storms and tornadoes. The internet is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions. And to put that in perspective, that's the same amount of emissions as from aviation. By 2030, the internet is on track to consume as much as 20% of world electricity. In other facts about climate, 60% of wildlife has already been lost since 1970. Over the past 2 decades, 9 sea levels have risen by 3.2 millimeters per annum. We're on course to lose half of all insects by the end of the century. In 2019, Greenland set a new record for ice loss, 352 billion tons. The 5 years with the biggest losses have all occurred in the past decade. Music streaming accounted for 200 to 350 million kilograms of greenhouse emissions in 2015 and 16 in the US only. I've done some calculations on streaming Spotify. If you were to listen to an album, if you were to listen for Spotify and doing it for 8 hours for 21 working days, it would emit as much CO2 per month as driving nearly 20 miles by an average passenger vehicle. If you were to listen to an album 27 times in full, it's likely that manufacturing and producing the same album would be more environmentally friendly than streaming it. Data centers, carbon-intensive data centers. Most data centers these days are still powered by regular fossil fuel energy. They consume 3% of global electricity supply and account for 2% of total of greenhouse emissions. There's a study, it's focused on Japan, and in this study it is suggested that Japan's data centers would consume its entire electricity supply by 2030 if growth continues at today's rate. Unless there will be game-changing breakthrough on data storage, there'll have to be different measures put in place in order to stop the need of more data storage. Some examples would include, restrictions to the amount of the internet use. How can developers save the world? Tech industry consumes as much as 2% of CO2 emissions, right? And that is a lot of emissions. As developers, we all love new frameworks, we love fancy animations, we love going above and beyond, delivering the fanciest looking websites we can. According to HTTP Archive, the average web page in 2017 was 3 megabytes. That is a huge increase from 1.6 megabyte average in 2014. And this is the latest data that I have found, so it does keep growing. I recently watched a talk by Asim Hussain about sustainable software engineering and building carbon-efficient applications. In this talk, he describes 8 principles of sustainable software engineering. Sustainable software engineering is a discipline at an intersection of climate science, software practices and architecture, electricity markets, hardware, and data center design. The principles I'm going to talk about in a minute are a set of core values that are needed to define, build, and run sustainable applications. All these principles form a shared understanding of what it means to be sustainable software engineer, independent of industry domain, application domain, industry, organization size or type, cloud vendor or self-hosted, programming language or a framework. So what are the principles of sustainable software engineering? First one is carbon. Build applications that are carbon efficient. Don't make any unnecessary waste. Second, electricity. Build applications that are energy efficient. Number 3, carbon intensity. Consume electricity with the lowest carbon intensity. Be mindful of cron jobs. Embodied carbon. Build applications that run on all the hardware. Lengthen the lifespan of software. And energy proportionality. Run servers at higher rate of utilization. Networking. Reduce the amount of data and distance it must travel across the network. Send smaller data sets. Don't request all of the data in big chunks. Break them down. Demand shaping. Instead of shaping supply to meet demand, try shaping demand to match supply. Build carbon-aware applications. Measurement and optimization. Focus on end-to-end optimization that increases the overall carbon efficiency. What it stands out to me is that most of these principles are absolutely required for building resilient web. We know that we need to build fully accessible, fast, user-friendly applications. We know that the better we build them, the more traffic they're going to get. And that's our goal, isn't it? So I feel like to the long list of reasons why we need to follow good practices, we should also add sustainability. To expand on that a little bit, I'm going to talk about some real-life examples, tips if you like, of things you can do to help reduce carbon footprint by minimizing what you do and by optimizing your applications. Write clean HTML. You don't want to mess up the foundations of your site. Lint your code for unused scripts and CSS. Use less scripts if you can avoid it. Don't use jQuery because you probably don't need it. See if there is a way of using CSS animations instead of adding another JS library. Avoid using ads. Users hate them. They are so heavy to download as well. Do you need to use background videos, or does your site really need automated chat box? Simplify and minify all of the scripts and images. Lazy load previously optimized images. Think about user experience. The goal of every site is to make it as accessible and visually pleasing for the users as possible. Don't whack unnecessary junk just because you have some spare time or extra budget on the project. Look back and see if you can optimize it. If you don't need to, don't use Twitter embeds or Facebook embeds or anything. Links weigh nothing. And follow button on Twitter weighs 50 kilobytes. So there's a huge difference. Well, huge or not so huge, but there is a difference. And most importantly, use green servers. Convince your project managers, your directors, your clients to pay just a few quid extra to use green servers. On that note, Green Web Foundation has a huge directory categorized by countries where you can easily find green servers. You've done a great job, you build the application, but how do you know if you've done a good job? How do you know if it's sustainable, if it's a good app? There's a bunch of available services that can do audits for you. You could use Lighthouse tools in Chrome DevTools. It'll give you a score and tips for optimization. It's really, really useful. You could use website carbon calculator to measure carbon footprint of your site. It's a really cool tool. I'll show you how to use it. I would highly recommend it. I've done a couple of tests, a couple of audits on CityJS website. I put it through Carbon Website Calculator, and then I got the equivalence of the emitted CO2 in human readable format. The first test I've done was in the Lighthouse. So I'm just going to focus on the optimization, on the performance test. So the performance was 64, score 64 out of 100, which is pretty good, to be honest. The two opportunities that could be done to improve that score would be to remove unused JavaScript and eliminate render blocking resources. So the next thing that I've done is I put it through Carbon Website Calculator, and CityJS website is cleaner than 82% of the web pages that are being tested. It runs on green servers, which is amazing. And other than that, over a year with roughly 10,000 monthly page visits, this web page emits the amount of carbon that 2 trees absorb in a year, which is quite interesting. What I did next was I got the download size of the page. Size of the page. I put it through this calculator. So the homepage was 4.7 megabytes, and that multiplied by 1,000 visits a month results in 5.729 kilos of CO2 emitted per month. Once I've done that, I put it through the equivalency calculator. Don't worry, I've got all those links and the resources in my last slide. I will tweet the slide so you can have a look. So the equivalency results, the 1,000 visits to CityJS website per month is the same equivalent. It's got the same CO2 emissions as 731 smartphones charged, which is pretty interesting. It has the same greenhouse emissions as 14.2 miles driven by an average passenger vehicle. It's all really interesting, and I would really encourage everyone to look into it. There are a lot of much smarter people who talk about technology's impact on climate change, sustainable development, green servers, optimization, and all that. I would recommend to follow Chris Adams, and previously mentioned Asim Hussain. They put a lot of interesting resources out there. They do a lot of talks. Really cool people to follow if this interests you. Other than that, please download your music, your podcasts, your shows, wherever you're streaming them from. If you can, don't use YouTube to if you listen to music but not watching the videos. There is this interesting study that shows that YouTube, by only sending sound to users, would reduce their annual carbon footprint by the equivalent of 300,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year, which is a lot. Check out Principles of Sustainable Software Engineering. If you go to principles.green, that's where you can find everything. If you're interested in all that, I would highly recommend joining Climate Action Tech community. I would encourage everyone to organize 11 at 11. It's this initiative that encourages people to take 11 minutes break at 11 o'clock every Friday to talk about current state of climate change and the environment. If you go onto climateaction.tech, it'll take you here. If you're looking for green service, Green Web Foundation is the place to go. The directory there is always updated, so it's a good place to go to. Right, that's sustainable software engineering. If you want to measure your own carbon footprint, there is an app that's currently in beta called the North app. It automatically calculates your carbon footprint by connecting to other services and apps in your life, and it translates those activities to greenhouse emissions. If you use Firefox, you could use an add-on called Carbonalizer. I hope I said it right. It tracks your traffic and shows you how much CO2 you emit through browsing. It's worth having a look at some tech giants and their approach to sustainability. Amazon is very vocal about their policies, but most of their servers still run on fossil fuel powered energy. If that's something that bothers you as much as it bothers me, you can sign an open letter to Amazon requesting a change. I will tweet a link to it, and it's also in the resources. Google has a really good policy on sustainability and environment, and actually all their services run on renewable energy, and that is very impressive. The most impressive is Microsoft. They recently, last year, I believe, announced that they're going carbon negative and will reduce more carbon that they have emitted in history as a company. They said they will hit carbon negativity by 2030 and have removed the equivalent of its timeline emissions by 2050. They're also putting a lot of resources out there for developers and techies. Check out their blog; it's really interesting. I will tweet my slides, and all the resources I mentioned are on the last slide. I'll tweet that so you can have a look. If anyone has any questions, my DMs are opened. Happy to talk about that. So yes, we do only have 10 years to prevent irreversible damage from climate change. But hopefully during this talk, you've learned something new, something you can take home with you, something you can implement in your day-to-day lives. Or if you haven't learned anything, I'm hoping maybe you realize the importance of it all. Little by little becomes a lot. If we all do small changes, it will make a huge difference. So yes, thank you.
Hey, Natalia.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Great talk. Thank you very much, and thank you for raising such important points and questions for us to all consider in our daily lives. I think it's important to all of us, and I find it specifically interesting. My background actually is as a environmental and geographical scientist.
Great.
Uni, turned to web development because technology, life took that turn, but I've always kept an interest in that.
It's fun. I'm actually starting an environmental science degree in October.
Oh, fantastic! Where are you starting that?
Was that sorry?
Where will you be studying that?
With Open University.
Fantastic.
Yes, it took me a long time.
Yeah, I mean when I did my degree, the climate crisis wasn't quite as acute as it is now, but there was awareness, and there was feeling that we had to go paperless, and going digital was the way to go. But I think the truth, and which you're kind of revealing through your your talk, and the sort of activism around knowledge around the impact that we do have actually data center. The cloud isn't a cloud; it's a bunch of servers
Exactly.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the problem, isn't it?
Okay. And I know you did say your all your resources and links, because there was so much information in that talk and so many things to follow and so many articles to read. It would be really great if you make sure you tweet that out and just let's make sure people can get hold of that, because it feels like this is something we all need to get into our daily lives.
I have actually tweeted it during my slides, tweeted during the talk, so it should all be available out there. But if anyone needs any more, if I missed on something, then feel free to ask.
Well, some questions are coming in through the board here, so if you're ready, let me. It's such an interesting topic. I think there's so many angles we can take on it. So Michael has said, "Awesome talk, Natalia. What's your view on the rise of AI and its need for computing power, resulting in vast power consumption, creating heat with an urgent need of cooling?"
That is a great question. Sorry, my dog is coming into view.
Hello, Dobby.
It is a great question, and I think it's not an easy one. I think we need to be really mindful of how are we powering all the resources, right? And because we will be using a lot of energy to both run all the processes and then to call them. But yeah, I think it all comes down to renewables, really.
Okay. So your source of energy is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been fed the line that technology will save us, and now technology is sort of, we need to find a way to bring awareness of what you're saying, the resources that technology use, and what the full life cycle of that is. So, another question is, you had a list of items to not do on your website. I'm curious about specifically having those items on your website contributes more to climate change. About having those what?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So, is that like, well, so basically the reason why I pointed those out, it's really like those are just the little things that can minimize the download of the web page, and that's what I meant. That's why I listed those out. So I don't know, putting chat boxes or extra long carousels, videos, things like that aren't optimized. That is an issue, I believe.
It's interesting because, I mean, the challenge is always to get an audience and to try and maximize and get as much traffic as possible. But at the same time, you're wanting to minimize people's use of the resources to get that traffic. So I suppose it's like, 20 years ago, we had to optimize everything out of every pixel, and we should still be doing that rather than relying on broadband to deliver.
Yeah. And it's very closely tied with accessibility, really. If you build your site fully accessible, then you won't have this much of an impact on it as well. So there is so many angles you can look at it.
So accessibility and all those good practices that we should be doing for the user's sake anyway, we can actually have a better effect. Is that what you're saying on the carbon footprint of our website?
That is, yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Do you know which of the larger front-end frameworks generates the least CO2? I mean, is this something that's been done? Has anyone rated React versus Vue?
I can't remember. It is a great question, Tony. I saw someone do a little research into that, but I can't remember. Sorry, but I'll look into it.
I mean, it would be interesting to compare because you have this move with things like Svelte.js to sort of pre-compiled, web native technologies versus those that ship the framework along with everything that goes along with the delivery of the page, and maybe there is something in sort of an optimization step there. That's fascinating. yeah, keep the questions coming in, people, because I think this is very interesting topic. What can people do? I mean, you did mention, joining a local climate action group or something. I mean, what can we do in our daily lives, day to day? I mean, working remotely as we do, to sort of be effective, not only in our sort of technical implementation, but how can we get more people aware of this, and change the thinking of managers and clients and product owners?
Oh, I think talking to managers, product owners, we need to put, as sad as it is, really, but we're going to have to talk about business benefits, like how environment and sustainability is such a big topic for everyone out there. And as bad as it is from my perspective, looking at it, because I'm looking at it from a very ethical sort of form of to manage, building things more sustainably will bring like working at the sides of our lives. I believe like if we can all just switch to like, I don't know, octopus or another like renewable energy, that would be good. Just to me, turn off the TV when you leave the room. That.
Okay, so there's a change in lifestyle, which is probably going to be forced upon us, like the same way remote working has been forced upon us.
Yeah.
Maybe is there something that since this sort of epiphany that you've had around the impact of your professional life on the climate, that you've changed in your life generally, not necessarily tech related? This is a question from Tony. Is there something you've changed or eliminated from your life for environmental reasons that you miss now?
Loads, actually. I've been vegetarian for a few years now. Well, maybe not that many, actually. I try not to buy food that's being shipped, across the world.
Okay.
I like veg from local. Really, it's like not to get not to get into fast fashion. That's another thing. Trying not to upgrade my phone every time like a new version is because he doesn't think this.
Where do you think the UK stands in terms of the UK tech scene, in terms of using renewable resources and websites? Are we ahead or behind the rest of the world?
I'm not sure how we stand against the rest of the world, but I've heard a lot of people actually say that they are using green servers. So I believe that's a good thing. I think the biggest problem is that the AWS corporations that are running, that we're using their servers and their services, that those are still run on coal-powered energy, which is really, really, really bad. I don't want to. It's also. I tweeted. That's why I talked about that open letter to Amazon, because changes need to be. We can do all the little things and we can make a little difference, but if the big policies aren't going to make the difference, then that it's going to be a problem.
You had a lot of statistics and information there, and I assume those will be in your resources that you're going to be sharing. Do you have a sort of a go-to place where you check this, or do you just sort of gather it from all this data from various places?
I normally just gather this data from all the places. A lot of like on daily basis climate action tech community. Sites. Other than that, I don't know if you're interested in the subject, then I bet you would follow the right people and the right resources, because there is a lot of people, and then your list pounds into it.
Okay. At that point, I think we need to leave it there. And thank you very much again for the talk. And a reminder to everyone: get out there and make a difference, a positive difference to everyone. And well done on the talk. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.